One stitch at a time will make something totally new.
Hello everyone, my name is Serafi and I'm happy to meet you all. And today we're going to be playing Gwen, the Hallowed Seamstress. Gwen is an interesting character that I found in Legends of Runeterra, and I was originally going to make Viego my 6-star for Shadow Isles. No, not anymore. Gwen is way too much fun. She's very consistent, she's very powerful, and really the main benefit of Gwen is similar to the main benefit of Morgana, which is that you have a lot of sustain, which is very important for high risk runs. Sadly, I can't use her. Sadly, I can't use her to complete Swain's adventure because Swain doesn't have a spot for Shadow Isles champions. But I definitely think that I could if I wanted to. To start with, let's talk about the character. Gwen is a 4-mana 3/4 with quick attack and Hallow. Hallow is an interesting mechanic that is unique to Gwen. After I die, for the rest of the game, when allies attacked, Hallow your first attacker, giving it +1/+0 that round. So, like I said, this is a unique mechanic to Gwen, unlike most other champions who usually have like a partner that from another region. Gwen Hallowed is unique to the Shadow Isles. No other region has Hallow, and no other champion has synergy with Hallow, only Gwen. Gwen's own ability is, if she is attacking, when another ally gains power from Hallowed, so do I. So that's important. It means that if you have Scout somehow, Gwen does not get the power from the scouted unit attacking unless she also has Scout. Because she can only gain the power if she is attacking. That's pretty frustrating, but I can see why they balanced it that way, because they probably didn't intend for her to be paired with Gwen. Kind of sad, though. And then also, when you attack, drain 2 from the enemy nexus. Draining is really good. Obviously, you deal damage, and then you also heal that much. And in Path of Champions in particular, healing is very scarce and very useful. Gwen levels up if Gwen herself has dealt 10 damage. Excellent. Gwen's second form is a 4-mana 4/5 with quick attack and Hallow. Attack when another ally gains power from Hallowed, so do I. And then drain 1 from the enemy nexus 1 time for every 2 power that I have. I do not know why this is phrased this way. It does make her weak specifically to the nexus being tough. But Lysandra is the only PvP card that can do that. So I don't know if that was their intention, but it makes it very weird for Path of Champions. So, for example, if you attack with Gwen and she gains 6 power from Hallowed, therefore she is a 10/5, then her skill will drain 2 from the enemy nexus, or sorry, drain 1 from the enemy nexus 5 times. So, in theory, this is essentially like half overwhelm. It's very similar to Vi, where you just say, okay, I'll deal, half my power to the enemy nexus, but I also heal it. Cool, interesting idea. Here's the thing. Since it is triggered in little bursts instead of all at once, it has unexpected synergy with relics. In particular, the relic that I like to use on Gwen is Big Guns. Power: your spells and skills deal 1 extra damage. So, if you attack with Gwen and let's say that you have 17 power, normally you would drain the Nexus for 8, but each snip deals an extra 1 damage thanks to Big Guns, so you drain the Nexus for 16 instead. It's really, really strong. And then Gwen still hits. So you might think this is like getting elusive. No. I mean, it is very similar to having both elusive and lifesteal. But then she also hits, and her Constellation gives her overwhelm for some reason. So that's a lot. That's a lot of damage. There's a lot going on here. That's the basics of Gwen's character and how Gwen plays. Let's get into the specifics. We'll start with the Constellation. Snippets of song. Round start, if you don't have the attack token, summon a Ghastly Band. And a Ghastly Band is a 1-mana 2/1 with Ephemeral and Hallowed. Excellent. This is an easy way for you to ensure that you will stack up Hallowed every single turn without needing to draft Hallowed units. So Gwen gets around the Pike problem. Pike also summons a Lurker when he has the attack token, but summoning a Lurker is not enough to guarantee that you trigger Lurk. You have to both have a unit to attack with, and the top card of your deck has to be a Lurker. That's not the case with Hallowed. You simply need the unit to die, and this unit has Ephemeral, so it will always die. So this is a very well-designed little power to make Gwen consistent in a draft format. I like it. The second power is called Needlework. +1 starting mana. When your leftmost attacker gains power from Hallowed, so does the attacker to its right. Interesting. So this essentially makes your second attacker Gwen. It gains the power. So for example, if you attack with your Ghastly Band, and your Ghastly Band gains 4 power from Hallowed, then you also attack with a 2 mana 5/1 Fearsome, I don't remember what it's called, that unit will also gain 4. So it essentially doubles your Hallowed, which is really important for high health fights. Now, it's important to note that with Gwen specifically, it stacks with Gwen's ability. So if you attack with, like, you can do it one of two ways. You can either attack with a Hallowed unit, then another Hallowed unit, and then Gwen, and then all three of them will get the same Hallowed benefit. But if you attack with a Hallowed unit and then Gwen, the Hallowed unit will gain 1 times your Hallow, and Gwen will gain 2 times your Hallow. So for example, if you attack and you have 4 Hallowed, your 2/1 becomes a 6/1, and then Gwen gets 4 and 4, she becomes an 11/4. So that's a lot of benefit to leveling Gwen up and to easily crushing people. Generally speaking, Gwen will level up when she hits the board, and you're not going to play her, hopefully, unless you have the attack token. So really, really strong, really interesting little deck here. The Snippets of Song upgrade is simply round start, summon a Ghastly Band. So you get a Ghastly Band every turn instead of just when you don't have the attack token. So if her first star is basically just to make sure you always have blockers, which is important. The third star is where you really start attacking every single round, which is great. Next up we have Star of Bounty, +10 Nexus Health and +100 gold, pretty standard. And then over here, we have Star of Legends. This is the best Star of Legends in the game, in my opinion. Your support champions have heavy hands, which is double attack. So if you summon a support champion and it gets benefit from Hallowed, like let's say you play Katarina. Well, Katarina's a bad example. Let's say that you play Lux, and Lux is just a 3/4, and she gets +3 from Hallowed, but she's only going to be a 6/4 normally, but she has double attack, so now she can hit for 12. And remember, you might say, oh, well, double attack is wasted if you have high attack. No, it's not, because we have Overwhelm. So, Crush. Allies have Overwhelm. This is a 4-star. So, if your support champion has 7 attack and double attack, and your opponent blocks it with a 1 health unit, you hit the Nexus for 6, then you just immediately double attack ADN into the Nexus and hit for another 7. So, double attack and Overwhelm is a very, very powerful combination, and you are guaranteed to get it on any champion that you want, and whichever champion you want is going to have a ton of attack points because of your Hallowed Mechanic. So this is a very well-designed, very aggressive Constellation. And it's interesting because you would think that a Constellation for a champion that had so much healing would not be aggressive. It would be more control-focused. Actually, here's the thing. Gwen is really weak to units that have a lot of attack and Overwhelm or Elusive. She can't really deal with wide boards too well. So essentially what Gwen does in the game is you simply don't block a lot of the time. And then you just take a bunch of damage, and then you just heal back to full with Gwen. I think this is very, very... It's like designed on a razor's edge, but it's like perfectly balanced, as all things should be. I love it. All right, up here, we have Star of Discovery. Followers you acquire in an adventure have Miraculous Melody. So every follower that you get, regardless of its mana cost, is Hallowed. Fantastic. Okay, so the only card that's going to be in your deck that's not Hallowed are the cards that start in your deck and your support champion. And you don't want your support champion to die anyway, so it doesn't matter. And then the cards that don't have Hallowed in your deck are, just don't play them if you don't want to. So this is great. This is just going to make your deck way more consistent. You don't have to worry about drafting cards anymore because all of your cards will have Hallowed. It's important to note that Hallowed only matters for the unit dying to give you Hallowed bonuses, any unit, whether it's Hallowed or not, can gain attack from a Hallowed unit dying. So this just makes your Hallowed bonus go way up. I don't even have this star yet. I'm going to get it, of course, but I don't really feel like it's necessary to do high-level Gwen plays. Next up, we have Mana Flow, Game Start, gain a Mana Gem. Standard. Having 3 mana is really good for Gwen. You know, ideally, I would like it if there was a way for Gwen to get a 4th starting mana, just so you could play her on the first round when her 6-star activates. But I can understand it not being available. Over here, we have Star of Blessing. Sapling Toss has Hextech Fabricator 2 to give your strongest ally a rare item this game. It's important to note that if you play, if you give a random rare item to your Ghastly Band, because it's the only unit that's on your board, you're guaranteed to have that Ghastly Band every single turn. So a rare item like that could be really useful, especially if it's something like Crystal Carrier or maybe Special Delivery. So I feel like, yeah, I feel like Hextech Fabricator 2 just goes onto the Sapling if it doesn't go onto Gwen. Next up, we have Star of Wonder. Ghastly Band has Skirmisher Saber. This is very similar to Viego, which is interesting. Yeah, I like the idea that your Ghastly Band will simply just be able to challenge whatever you want. Keep things off of Gwen. Make sure that you can kill things. You don't care about the unit dying because it's ephemeral anyway. So just give it as much attack as you want and crash into it. A 0 mana, you know, scaling attack challenger unit with ephemeral and no health is amazing. It's like basically the premiest removal that you've ever seen. And then lastly, for her 6-star, Last Dance. Game start, summon 4 Ghastly Bands and rally. Okay, so you're going to have one from her 3rd star, and then you summon 4 more, and then you rally to make sure that you can use them even if your opponent goes first. That's 5 stacks of Hallow right off the bat. And if you play your Hextech Fabricator, you can just give every single one of them some rare item. It could be Phage, it could be Colossal Hammer, you know, and then you just strike for a ton of damage. They all have challengers, so you can force them to block. You know, you could use them to remove the deadly units on your opponent's board, or soften them up, or do something. It just is really, really solid to get your game plan rolling. To just have 5 Hallowed immediately. So, as you can see, there's not really any misses on this tree. I don't think there's a single one of these nodes that isn't useful to you in some way, and then the nodes that are good, like Double Attack and Challenger, are very, very good. Let's take a look at her deck. So Gwen's deck, we have the Boisterous Host, which is a 1 mana 2/1 Hallowed, just generally speaking, a 1 mana 2/1 Hallowed, and it gains Challenger. Sweet. So it's the same thing as the Ghastly Band, except it's not ephemeral. But having a low cost unit that has Challenger is really, really good. This is basically going to be your Skirmisher's, your Ghastly Band has Skirmisher Saber before you get there, which is fair. It's really expensive, so for most of your run, you're not going to have that star. So it's good to have this card as like a good one-off removal card. If you attack for 10, you have Challenger, you're good to go. Yeah, just a good card overall. Next up, we have Glimpse Beyond. Glimpse Beyond, of course, is 2 mana, kill an ally to draw 2. That's really, really strong. I cannot believe this is not in Thresh's deck. But the fact that it didn't get it into Thresh's deck and then they gave it to someone else who's stronger than Thresh is very surprising. So you would expect this to be in Kindred's deck, which Kindred has the unit version of this, the Spirit Leech. You would expect this to be in Thresh's deck, which it's not. It being in Gwen's deck is insane. So you just kill one of your ephemeral units that was going to die anyway. You draw 2, and you summon a Poro, because it gets Poro Snacks, and it gets Mana Potion. So 1 mana, remove your ephemeral unit, add Hallowed to the stack, and then draw 2 and summon a Poro that can gain the Hallowed benefit. A very, very good effect. I definitely think this is, you know, one of the best cards in the Shadow Isle. So, I mean, this card's just insane with the way that blocking works. And, of course, you have an ephemeral unit anyway. So, your opponent just attacks. You put your Ghastly Band in front of one of their, like, 7/8s. And then you play this, and then you didn't need to strike for 2 anyway, because you're going to get, like, a Challenger unit that has 8 attack anyway. So you just draw 2, and you summon a Poro. You know, just solid overall. Next up, we have Sapling Toss. So 1 mana burst spell, summon a sapling at the next round starts, and it gets hand sensor, so it has grant your top ally of your deck +1/+1. That's not too good, but then remember that it also gets the Hextech Fabricator if you're deep enough in the Constellation. This is just a really good card to make sure that you can hit the Nexus. Every Challenger unit that you have is more guarantee that your Hallowed units will just strike the Nexus. So this card is just a great card to play during your opponent's turn to make sure that you can win the game next turn. Next up, we have Phantom Butler. Phantom Butler is a 2 mana 3/1 with Fearsome and Hallowed. The level ups give it Pickaxe, so it's a 2 mana 5/1. That's great. That means that Gwen can use Trifarian Might. Every deck needs a cheap 5 attack unit so that Trifarian Might becomes an option, because Trifarian Might is like something that you would want to spec into. And so if you get Trifarian Might as like your first power, you're led to pick it because you have the Phantom Butler, and then you can start getting high attack units, and they'll all have Hallowed because of your followers' memory. So yeah, this is just good. As far as having Fearsome, that's not that good, but it's just a high attack Hallowed unit. You're just going to attack with it early, maybe make a trade or two, if you can make something vulnerable, and then you just hit the Nexus. So, good card. Next up, we have Conductor of the Mists. This is probably one of the best cards in her deck. It's a 3 mana 4/2 with Hallowed and Last Breath, create a Ghastly Band in hand. So it's a Hallowed unit that gives you another Hallowed unit. And this card is the only way that you can actually get Ghastly Bands like in your hand, because you don't actually, Ghastly Band isn't actually in her deck. It's just kind of funny. The item cards that it gets Great Club pretty early, and then the last item card that you can get gives it Pickaxe as well. I don't currently have that. I have Gwen at like level 26. A 3 mana 6/2 with Hallowed and Overwhelm is crazy. So again, the 2 extra attack just means that you can really easily make use of Trifarian Might. And that's really good for Gwen because it essentially gives her removal during the opponent's turn to make sure that she doesn't need to block as much. Because you're not going to win. You're not going to win any fights on your opponent's turn. So having non-combat strikes like Trifarian Might is fantastic for the deck. And then as far as just a 6/2 with Overwhelm crashing, I mean, of course the Great Club is not good, right? Because the problem is that her 4-star gives you Overwhelm anyway. But you do need some item cards that are good before you get the 4-star, so I can understand why this is in here. Hopefully when they add extra levels, we have ways to like remove some of these redundant item cards and upgrade them if you're a high enough level with the champion. Next up, we have the Undying. This is the first unit in our deck that does not have Hallowed, except for the Saplings, but the Saplings don't really count because they're spells. This is a 3 mana 2/2 with Can't Block, and has Last Breath, revive me at the next round start, and grant me +1/+1 for each time that I've died. This is very similar to Ephemeral. You really don't care if this unit dies, which makes it great to attack with the Hallowed benefit. And basically, this card just encourages you to play as aggressive as possible. Remember, it will have Overwhelm thanks to your 4-star. And then if your opponent blocks it, then they'll just come back and it'll give you more power. It is interesting, though. There's a minor drawback, a little bit of anti-synergy. So the Crystal Carrier that it gets, which gives you an extra mana every single round that you have it on the board, doesn't trigger if it has to revive, which is very interesting. So you're rewarded for both. You're rewarded for both not being able to attack and also for attacking, because if you attack, then you're just clearing things and getting it back for free and giving it an extra +1/+1. I guess that the main reason the Crystal Carrier is on there is to make it feel a little bit better to play when you're on your opponent's turn, because it literally can't block. So you get the extra mana on your turn to kind of recover. I like an Eternal Crystal Carrier. That's really solid. Next up, we have Chronicler of Ruin, 4 mana, 3/3 with play, kill an ally, and revive it. It gets Phage, so it is another unit that triggers Trifarian Might. You might see a common recurring theme here. These units do not need this attack stat because they get Hallowed. So these are literally here just to enable Trifarian Might and nothing else, which is fantastic. Killing an ally and reviving it, it's really good. You can just get, like, you hit this a Ghastly Band, then your Ghastly Band will trigger Hallowed twice. That's fine. And then if you hit this on the Undying, now you have 2 extra mana every single round. So because the Undying will revive itself immediately, and then the next turn you'll still summon the other Undying from the last breath. So you'll have 2 Undyings. So yeah, Chronicler of Ruin's just a really good card. You can use it to heal Gwen if you need to. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any complaints about this card. It's just a great addition to her deck. The only problem is it doesn't have Hallowed, but that's fine. And then lastly, we have Atrocity with Double Time Watch. Atrocity is insane. So Atrocity is kill an ally to deal damage equal to its power to anything. It's a 7 mana fast spell. And you get Double Time Watch. So if you have it in your hand, it goes down by 1 mana every single turn. If you spend 4 mana on Atrocity, that's insane. Because Atrocity can literally deal like 20 damage to the Nexus. So 4 mana for that is crazy good. Obviously, when you have Atrocity, that means that you want to play Commander Ledros. I don't think Gwen's deck like encourages Commander Ledros. It doesn't get it in your shop more than any other Shadow Isles champion, but you still have a chance to get it, of course. And of course, Commander Ledros with Atrocity will usually just win you the game right off the bat. Anyway, it's important to note that this Big Guns triggers on this. So if you have Big Guns instead of Luden's Echo and you play Atrocity, then you'll deal, the unit's damage +1 to the Nexus, which may be relevant and may not. Okay, so that's the deck. As far as relics are concerned, I would recommend Big Guns, then Crown Guard Inheritance, which is when I level up Rally. The problem with Gwen primarily is that she has to strike in order to level up, and there's not really any good ways to out of combat strike her. Her champion spell does have you basically deal the unit's power as damage to Thread the Needle. Kill an ally to deal damage equal to its power to an enemy, but it kills the unit, so it can't be used to level Gwen up, which is kind of sad. Which is weird. Normally, champion spells are designed to help you level up, so I don't know why it does that. So you play Crown Guard Inheritance, so that after she strikes, she levels up, then you rally, then you can attack again to immediately get the benefit of her being leveled up, and that will usually kill your opponent. Remember that Hallowed lives until end of turn, and it can activate more than once. So if you attack with Gwen with Hallowed the first time, and she gets to be like a 7/3, right? And then you attack again, she could get another 4 attack and be like an 11/3. So you'll still have the Hallowed benefit from the first attack when you level up, which is beneficial because you're going to start striking the Nexus for the amount of attack that you have, and then you also have extra attack from the extra Hallowed proc. So solid. The last item is probably going to be Luden's Echo. Luden's Echo is a rare relic that says all of your spells and skills deal 1 extra damage. So I mean, it's up to you what you want. You could put Black Shield or the Spell Shield one here. What is it called? Banshee's Veil. You could put Banshee's Veil there to give her Spell Shield to make sure she doesn't get removed. But I don't feel like that's really that necessary. You could put, if you put Luden's Echo on there, then she does 3 damage for every 2 power that she has, which is crazy good. So yeah, that's basically all I would recommend. I guess you could play. I don't know if Wicked Harvest would count. If you play and you Wicked Harvest, does that count as her dealing the damage? That'd be kind of funny, because then she could just immediately level up. Whatever. So that's my thoughts on Gwen. You could also play. I guess you could play Chosen by the Stars to give her Challenger and Regeneration, but that's not necessary. Anyway, you should definitely play her. Easiest Lysandra win I've ever had. My name is Serafi, and I was thrilled to have all of you with me.